welcome to the Rise Above show with Patti Jo Grover, where we rise above our challenges and turn believers into achievers. Today, my show guest is Steve Beauchamp, and let me tell you a little bit about Steve. He is a certified Ikigai Tribe coach, lover of nature, and a continuous improvement mentor and practitioner. His coaching practice aims to teach and coach the concepts of building strategic alignment through Japanese wisdom and philosophy. By building that alignment, he has helped clients remove barriers to their success and has reset their trajectory in order for them to achieve the transformation that they didn't even know was possible. So, oh my goodness, Steve, I'm so excited to hear what you're doing and to have you as a guest on the Rise Above show.
Yeah, Patti, thanks for having me. This is an honor, and I appreciate the invitation.
Wonderful. So excited. So I shared with you a little bit, is there a phrase or words of wisdom that you heard as a child that you didn't, that have really kind of stuck with you? And I want to know, did you understand it then as a child, and do you still see it the same way as an adult?
That's such a great question. And when I was thinking about this, the thing that really came to mind was, and I'm sure you've heard this, and it's if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And, when I first heard that, I originally took that as, hey, you really need to make sure that you're continually learning and continuing to, move into different rooms, if you will, to, make sure that, stays true. And, I think my perspective has shifted a little bit on that, over the last, probably 5 or so years. And the way that I think about it now is, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm talking too much. And I need to take a step back and listen more and, give people more space to, shine. And so that's kind of how my perspective has changed a little bit on that.
Right. And my thoughts with that, Steve, is, when you are, that's not showing you and giving you that exposure to more that you can learn and grow from, right? So you want to position yourself to be around other people that you can learn and grow from.
Absolutely.
So, fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. So let me ask you though now, Steve, is there other ways or other words that you might use to share that same message in today's world? Yeah,
I think, and this probably shines a little bit more light on who I am today too, and it's it's being able to keep living your truth and being able to embrace who you are, but in the process of doing that, don't forget that you need to give other people space to do the same thing. And so yeah, I think for me that's kind of how I think about that, and really stepping back to be able to step forward together. So.
And you know what, Steve, I was giving that some thought, and I was thinking, if I said I no longer want to grow, and personally or professionally, and I don't want to do that, if I just want us to stop and say, you know what, I've had enough, I'm done growing, I would be doing a disservice to myself.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
So that's the way I kind of think of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Great. So let me ask you, so that people understand it, and I really would love to get a better understanding of this. What is Ikigai?
Yeah, so Ikigai. And
you have a tribe. You have an Ikigai tribe.
Yeah, so, before I jump into unpacking that a little bit, I am part of the Ikigai Tribe. It is a network of coaches that span the globe. So the word Ikigai is actually made up of 2 words, which is really common in the Japanese language. The first word is ikiru, which means to live or daily living. And the second word is gai, which means value or worth. And when you put the two of them together, you get, the value of everyday living. And Dr. Ken Magi has put it, in a slightly different way that kind of, I think, will resonate with everybody. And he says that, it's the reason you get up in the morning, right? And so it's those things that like cause you to really get excited about the day. And, you and maybe your listeners may have seen a Venn diagram, that's been out on the internet. And it has 4 interlocking circles in it. That which you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And, although this, diagram can be helpful for those that are really wanting to understand their Ikigai, what I've learned is that it's not actually what the Japanese consider to really be the meaning behind Ikigai. And, if you do a little bit of study, you can find out that Venn diagram actually was created by Andreas Zuzunaga, who is a Spanish author and psychological astrologer. And, basically Mark Wynn heard a TED Talk by Dan Buettner about Okinawa and heard the word Ikigai, changed the word in the center from what was originally purpose to Ikigai, and then it went viral. And so, but you can do, a lot more research and digging into Ikigai by learning a little bit more about Miyako Kamiya, who I consider to be like the mother of Ikigai, if you will, and really kind of forging, some of the path forward in the positive psychology world. And she wrote her original book back in 1966, which is quite a long time ago. And unfortunately, she passed away at an early age of, I believe, her late 60s or early 70s from cancer. And so unfortunately, her life was cut short. But she did a lot of research, really learning about what is Ikigai and what does it mean to people? And, one of the little fascinating tidbits that I learned about her too was she originally did a lot of her research in a leprosarium with people that were actually, kind of living with some pretty severe symptoms. And even though they were living in those kinds of conditions, they still had a reason to get up every morning. And they still found this reason for living. And it fascinated her to learn more about what that meant. And so that's kind of where the genesis of some more in-depth research around Ikigai really started.
Oh, my goodness. So, Steve, I work with people on finding their purpose and their why and all these things. But I want to see how this relates. So I have a question for you more here.
Yeah.
How is purpose in the context of Ikigai from the Japanese perspective opposed to, how does it opposed to the Venn diagram that we've seen? So I know you were just talking about that, but can you explain the differences here?
Sure, yeah. So when you think about it from more of the Japanese context, it really can kind of be thought of as some of the smaller things in life. When you look at that Venn diagram, it seems to be this like big goal that you need to figure out for yourself, because those 4 interlocking circles can be pretty, it can feel pretty, big. But really Ikigai can be as small as looking forward to, having your cup of coffee or tea in the morning, or it could be, being greeted by your pet when you come home, like your dog is always excited to see you, or your cat comes over and, sinks their nails into your leg, or, whatever they do when you come home. And, so it can be something as small as that. It could also be something a little bit larger as well. But for them, the context is really in a much smaller kind of way. And if I could read a quote to you from Ken Magi, I think it kind of helps unpack it a little bit more. And he says, the greatest secret of Ikigai ultimately has to be the acceptance of oneself, no matter what kind of unique features one might happen to be born with. There is no single optimum way to Ikigai. Each one of us has to seek our own in the forest of our unique individualities. And so you could really kind of think about, our purpose. And
I love that.
Yeah.
I got to heart that. I love that.
It's such a great quote. And when you think about purpose in the context of Ikigai from a Japanese perspective, it's really about helping us find acceptance of our authentic self and being able to live from that piece, and really not so much about setting these big goals that you're going after.
So interesting. And so I this just makes things connect for me. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. So thank you for sharing the whole concept with us.
Yeah.
So if you're just joining us today, my guest is Steve Beauchamp, and we're having such a wonderful conversation. Japanese culture, and he'll be able to, you'll understand a little bit more when we go back to this conversation, because it is amazing to me, similar connections that it has with life, for all of us. It doesn't matter where we are on the globe, right, on the planet.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So Steve, let me ask you now. So things are difficult for me to pronounce, so I may need a little help here, but What is Shinrin-Yoku?
Yeah, so Shinrin-Yoku it's a Japanese term, again. It's made up of a bunch of words, but basically when you unpack it, it literally means forest bathing. And this term was originally coined by Tomohide Akiyama back in 1982 as a way to encourage the residents of Japan to get back outside and really reconnect with nature, because Japan has a really long history of being connected to the land, so much so that most of their buildings were and still are constructed from the forests that grow on the country. And so this was an effort by him to say, hey everybody, let's reconnect with our nature that's surrounding us. And for me, when I started learning a little bit more about what this is, I discovered that it's not just about hiking or climbing mountains or just being in nature. There's some intentionality behind it too. So it's really about connecting with nature with all of your senses. So listening, seeing, smelling, touching, and tasting. Caveat with the tasting: make sure you know what you're tasting before you put something in your mouth.
That is amazing. I really am a nature lover myself, and I know that we are so blessed to have. I mean, if you look out at things, it's just the amazement that we have these things, that the beauty. Yeah. And the benefits that are all connected to those things, and for us to allow ourselves to be connected to the earth. And, sure. You can do that through grounding yourself, and people do different processes of grounding themselves, right from just being barefoot out on the grass, getting your toes in the grass or in the sand. But some people lay right down. There's different things, and there's different forms of meditation and everything that people do. My husband and I, we have honeybees. So we have bees, and we have a disc golf course. So we have 18 holes of disc golf. So we're out doing, playing and having people enjoy the property. But we recently have actually gotten into finding out about discovering mushrooms and all these things with that. And it's amazing when you talk about these things and learn more about what is around us. And like you said, you got to watch out what you choose to eat. But it also just the medicinal properties of some things, as well as how it connects. I mean, with mushrooms, how they connect to all kinds of other plant life that we never even realized.
Agreed. My wife and I do a lot of foraging, but be careful, learn, get some education before you go do that for sure. So I'm enjoying this conversation and seeing how everything connects through, and it doesn't matter where in the world you are. Oh my goodness. So Steve, how do the two concepts of Ikigai and let me try to get this right, Shinrin-Yoku connect? How do they blend together? So great question, and I think it can be different for everybody, just as everyone's Ikigai can be different. But we all, I think, share a connection to nature. All of us, I think, when we have the opportunity to experience nature, are able to find that connection, and I believe that doesn't matter where in the world you are. But, when COVID first hit and they closed off, everything basically, and we were like stuck at home, it was initially pretty hard for me because I realized just how strong of a connection I had with nature. And so you can think about, learning about, just as a side note, like what your Ikigai is when it's taken away, right? So when you start feeling that emptiness and that hole from something that you can't do anymore, that can be something you could use as an indicator of, oh, hey, this is something that is probably, a part of what your Ikigai is. But the connection to nature and that connection to the world around us, I think is a way to think about our Ikigai as well, because it's, as I said, if it's your reason for getting up in the morning, right, it can also connect to, you intentionally going out into nature, whether that's a park or a garden, or if you have access to, one of the forests around you. It can be, it doesn't have to be this big, huge forest. It can just be a little sliver of nature. And, many of us enjoy exercising outside, right, because of the benefit we get from the air, as opposed to being stuck indoors. But, I think that's, part of that connection is for me part of that Ikigai. And so you can then, really start being intentional about connecting with nature, because it's going to nurture like you, right? And then that becomes something that comes out from you as well.
Oh, yeah, I 100% agree. And I hope our viewers and listeners are taking note of this conversation and really think about how this connects to you. How do you feel when you get a chance to go out and breathe that fresh air and just take a break, shutting everything else out and going for a walk and just allowing your mind to just be clear and just absorbing the rays from the sun, the having that fresh air in your lungs. It's kind of like it erases that whiteboard, and then you can look at things and not feel that cluttered mind.
Yeah.
And it allows you to be, and take a breath. 100%. And then say, I can get back at it. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So, so Steve, let me ask you again. So with so how can someone take the small steps and start an intentional practice of the Shinrin-Yoku? How can somebody start an intentional practice?
Yeah, it's actually a practice that I like to share with those that are, really just trying to figure this out. Like, well, and maybe you think, like I indicated earlier, maybe you think, well, I don't have access to a forest, so I can't do this practice because it's called forest bathing, but it doesn't necessarily matter that you have access to a forest. But what you could do is, go to a local park, or if you have a garden, outside that you can, connect with the dirt and the plants. Or if you have options to go to a forest, I encourage you to do that too. But this particular exercise is all about helping you expand your peripheral vision and kind of gain some awareness beyond like our tunnel vision. Yeah, because a lot of us spend so much time, speaking to screens, and I recognize it's not lost on me that we're currently speaking to a screen. But so this is a practice that you can take to like really help you expand that. And so if you walk into this nature area and stand still with your head still and just start shifting your eyes from left to right, and don't move your head, just move your eyes so that you can really start to expand your peripheral vision. And once you've done that like 10 or so times, look as deep into the area that you're in as you can. So if you're in the forest, really try to look as far as you can past all the branches and everything and see that point out in the distance. And then, after you've paused there for a moment, bring your focus back to something within inches of you. So look at, a plant that's around you or a tree and get really up close to it. And then once you've done that, extend your gaze up high into the sky so you can see, the sky beyond all of the plants that are around you. And really, it's all about being able to expand that awareness of what you're looking at. And we like to call this the gentle gaze, right? So, and it's all about taking in everything that's around you. And, the one thing that I love this particular idiom that the Japanese have that I really love, and it's really kind of become something really special to me, it's called Ichigo Ichie. And what that means is it's really kind of describing the unrepeatable nature of a moment. So each moment that happens, even if you tried to recreate it in the future, can never be the same as it is right now. And every time you are, in nature, it's never going to look exactly the same as it was when you were standing there. And it's a great reminder, I think, and it helps me with my grounding to really just be mindful of the fact that, we need to treasure each moment.
Oh, yeah. Steve, I couldn't agree more. Something that comes to mind when hearing that is when you're standing on the bank of a river or stream and you're seeing this water flow by.
Yeah.
You're never going to see that same water flow
Right.
by.
Yeah.
That just connected that so much for me. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing this. It's interesting and it's a beautiful thing. Oh my.